After a long prayer session, he looked at her and told her something that chilled her to the bone. And he said, "You have been cursed." He said calmly, "Your pride and arrogance have brought a curse upon your life. It is why you are where you are today." The air in Oba, a quiet town nestled in the eastern part of Nigeria, was filled with mystery and joy. For decades, the family of Mr. Obidi had not seen the birth of a girl child. His lineage was known for producing only boys for 3 to 4 generations. After 4 sons, Tobenna, Emeka, Jidenna, and Ogonna, Mr. Obidi and his wife, Ngozi, resigned themselves to a future with no daughters. They believed their family line would remain male-dominated forever. But then, 20 years after their youngest son, Ogonna, was born, a miracle occurred. Ngozi became pregnant again at an age where conception seemed unlikely. When they found out that she was carrying a baby girl, joy filled the Obid household. When she put to bed, the family named her CHIZY'S, meaning God sent me, for they believed her birth was a divine gift. And everyone started calling the baby Chizy, Chizy, instead of CHIZY'S. Chizy grew up with immense love and pampering. Her 4 brothers, all older and wealthy, provided her with everything she desired. Tobenna and Emeka, based in Europe, sent her the latest fashion. Jidenna, who lived in America, showered her with gifts from the States. Ogonna, the only brother based in Abuja, constantly visited her, bringing along luxury items from the capital city. By the time Chizy was 13 years old, she already had her own car. She attended the best schools and traveled abroad frequently. Her upbringing was gilded with luxury, but it also fueled her arrogance. Despite her privileges, Chizy was known for her haughty attitude. She often looked down on those she considered beneath her, especially the poor. Her mother, Ngozi, tried to correct her behavior, pleading with her to be humble, but Chizy was unmoved. She believed she deserved the world and was entitled to the best things life had to offer. As Chizy blossomed into her 20s, suitors from all walks of life began to flock to her. Men of different backgrounds, status, and wealth wanted her hand in marriage. Some were successful businessmen, others were from prestigious families, but to Chizy, none seemed good enough. Some were too plain in her eyes. Others didn't flaunt their wealth in the way she expected. She insulted many, chased them away, and claimed she wasn't ready for marriage. She imagined herself marrying a man wealthier than her brothers or someone as handsome as a prince. Her parents tried to counsel her, warning her that she should seize the moment. But Chizzy was adamant. She was convinced that when the time was right, she would choose a man worthy of her. Little did she know that time was not on her side. Now, in her late 40s, Chizzy's beauty had faded with time. Though traces of her former elegance remained, she realized much to her dismay that the suitors had long stopped coming. What was once a parade of men eager to win her heart had turned into deafening silence. Her mother, Ngozi, repeatedly called her to the family house, where her father, Mr. Obidi, no longer hid his frustration, and he always said, "Chizzy, where is your husband?" He demanded sternly each time. And he said again, "I told you last time that you must bring your husband home, or you stop coming to this house." Ngozi, now older and withered by time, echoed her husband's sentiments, but with a gentler plea. "Chizzy, my daughter, I want to carry my grandchildren. Look at your brothers. They have their own grandchildren already. What are you waiting for? Go to your husband's house before it's too late." Chizzy's life, once filled with glamour, now felt empty. She became desperate, but no man approached her anymore. Her pride had kept them away, and now she was left alone. As a last resort, Chizzy turned to the one place she had once ignored: God. In her desperation, Chizzy started attending church more often. She visited prayer houses, seeking divine intervention for her situation. It was during one of these visits that she met a man of God renowned for his spiritual insights. He was a tall, imposing figure with deep-set eyes that seemed to see through her. After a long prayer session, he looked at her and told her something that chilled her to the bone. And he said, "You have been cursed." He said calmly, "Your pride and arrogance have brought a curse upon your life. It is why you are where you are today." Shocked, Chizzy fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She had never imagined that her behavior could have such spiritual consequences. She realized that if she ever wanted to find peace, she would need to break this curse. But how? The pastor revealed that Chizzy was cursed by a man called Chief Udenwa, and he asked Chizzy if she knew any man by that name, and she said no. So the pastor gave her some prayers and also told her to go home and think and ask questions. Chizzy's mind raced as she headed back home after her intense encounter with the pastor. The thought of a curse being placed on her because of an incident she couldn't even remember weighed heavily on her heart. When she arrived home, her mother, Ngozi, was waiting for her. Chizzy wasted no time in recounting the shocking news from the pastor. Her voice quivered as she spoke. "Mama, oh, the pastor said someone cursed me. A man named Chifudenwa. Mama, do you know anyone like that?" And her mother, Ngozi, looked puzzled at first and told Chizzy She did not recall anyone by that name. Still, she promised to ask her father, Mr. Obidi, later in the evening. That night, after dinner, Ngozi brought up the name in a casual tone, and she said, Papa Tobenna, do you know anyone called Chief Udenwa? And he said, no. Why do you ask? Then she, Ngozi, told him what the pastor told their daughter, CHIZY. For a moment, her husband looked blankly into the distance, but then his eyes widened as if recalling a buried memory, and he said, Yea, I remember. Chief Udenwa, he repeated slowly. Yes, I remember now. He was the father of one of the men who came for CHIZY'S hand in marriage years ago. CHIZY insulted him terribly, even poured wine on him. He was furious, although I begged him to forgive her. But it seems he didn't take my plea to heart. After saying this, Mr. Obidi's face darkened with anger, and he said again, I will arrest him. He declares with fierce resolve, I will show him that no one curses my family and gets away with it. But Ngozi, his wife, ever the peacemaker, quickly intervened, and she said, No, Papa Tobenna, this is not the time for revenge. We must seek a solution, not a fight. The pastor said we must seek forgiveness. At that moment, CHIZY was called into the room. Her mother gently relayed the entire story to her, and the weight of her actions suddenly crashed over her like a tidal wave. CHIZY, for the first time in her life, felt true remorse. Tears poured down her face uncontrollably. She realized that her arrogance had led her down this dark path. The next day, CHIZY, with her parents by her side, returned to the pastor's office. As they entered, the atmosphere was heavy with both anticipation and a sense of impending judgment. CHIZY, who had always held her head high, now looked down in humility. Her once arrogant demeanor was replaced by a broken spirit. The pastor sat across from them, his deep-set eyes full of wisdom and compassion. After hearing the full story from Mr. Obidi about the incident with Chief Udenwa, the pastor turned to CHIZY and he said, his voice was gentle but firm, My dear, what you did was very wrong. You cannot treat people like that, no matter who they are. These men came to ask for your hand in marriage out of love and respect. That is not something to mock. However, our Lord Jesus Christ is merciful, and no sin is too great for his forgiveness. CHIZY'S tears flowed freely as the pastor spoke. The weight of her past actions was too much to bear, and all she could do was cry. Her mother, seated beside her, held her hand, squeezing it gently, trying to offer her strength. The pastor continued, I will give you specific prayers to follow, accompanied by fasting. On the last day of your prayers, you and your parents will return to me, and we will go together to Chief Udenwa's house. There, you will ask for his forgiveness. Only then will your deliverance be completed, he said. CHIZY nodded, her voice choked with tears. She realized that This was her path to redemption, her way to undo the damage she had caused so long ago. The days that followed were the most humbling of CHIZY'S life. She immersed herself in the prayers the pastor had given her, fasting for days and crying out to God for forgiveness. Her arrogance was stripped away, and all that remained was a woman desperate for a second chance. She prayed day and night, pleading with God to release her from the curse that had bound her for so long. Each prayer was filled with tears, each fast marked by moments of reflection on the life she had lived. She began to understand the pain she had caused not only to Chief Udenwa, but to all the men she had mistreated over the years. Her parents supported her through it all, praying alongside her and offering her comfort in her most difficult moments. They saw the change in their daughter, and for the first time in years, they felt a glimmer of hope. After the days of fasting and prayer, the final day had arrived. CHIZY, along with her parents, returned to the pastor's office. The pastor greeted them warmly and led them in a final prayer before they set out to meet Chief Udenwa. CHIZY was anxious, her heart pounding in her chest as they drove to the chief's residence. She knew that this was the moment that would determine her future, whether she would be free from the curse or not. As they approached the Chief Udenwa's grand compound, CHIZY'S hands trembled. The man she had insulted so long ago had the power to either forgive her or refuse her plea. All she could do now was place her trust in God and hope for the best. As they entered Chief Udenwa's grand and traditional compound, CHIZY'S heart pounded against her chest, each beat louder than the last. The air felt thick with anticipation as they were escorted into a spacious, well-decorated sitting room adorned with local artworks and regal furniture. CHIZY'S eyes darted around the room until they landed on him, Chief Udenwa, an elderly man with an imposing presence. He was seated on a large armchair, his face stern but calm. Chief Udenwa's deep-set eyes glared at CHIZY, instantly reminding her of the man she had once humiliated. His tall and broad frame, though slightly hunched with age, still commanded respect. His grey beard and the lines etched on his dark skin told stories of wisdom and hardship. CHIZY felt small in his presence, and for the first time in her life, she was at a complete loss for words. Her parents stood beside her, tensed but supportive, while the pastor moved forward to speak. "Good day, Chief Udenwa," the pastor greeted respectfully, bowing slightly, and he said, "We have come here today with a heavy heart. This young woman, CHIZY, seeks your forgiveness for the wrong she has done to you." After saying that, the room was silent for a moment, only the faint hum of the fan breaking the stillness. CHIZY'S eyes brimmed with tears, and as the pastor finished speaking, she stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "Chief Udenwa," she began, her voice cracking, I I was young and foolish. I didn't know the pain I was causing. I have been cursed for my actions, and I beg for your forgiveness. I am deeply sorry. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt before him, her head bowed low, completely humbled. Her parents stood behind her, their faces filled with sorrow and hope. Chief Udenwa's expression remained unchanged for a long moment. Then he slowly rose from his chair, his cane tapping lightly against the polished floor as he approached Chizzy. The room felt frozen in time, every second stretching into an eternity. He stood over her, his face inscrutable. After what seemed like an eternity, he spoke, his voice deep and resonant. He said, "What you did hurt me deeply. I was humiliated, and no father should feel that kind of disgrace, especially in front of his own son." But he paused, looking down at Chizzy, who was still on her knees, her tears wetting the floor. He continued, "I am not a man who holds onto grudges forever. If you truly seek forgiveness from your heart, then I will forgive it." Chizzy looked up, her eyes wide with hope. "I do. I truly do," she cried out. Chief Udenwa sighed deeply. "Then I forgive you," he said, his voice softer now, and he continued, "May God lift the curse that has been placed upon you." With those words, Chizzy collapsed to the ground, overcome with emotion, her sobs now ones of relief and gratitude. Her parents rushed forward, embracing her, tears in their own eyes. The pastor smiled warmly, offering a prayer of thanks as the weight of the curse was lifted from Chizzy's soul. After that emotional day at Chief Udenwa's home, Chizzy felt a great weight lifted from her soul. The curse was gone, but she knew that her life needed to change. For months, she continued with her prayers, dedicating herself to becoming a better person. She worked on being kind and respectful, making amends where she could with those she had wronged in her past. Despite her spiritual renewal, Chizzy still carried one deep sorrow. She longed for a husband and children of her own. She was approaching 50, and everyone around her had long since given up hope that she would marry, let alone bear children. But Chizzy never wavered in her faith, trusting that God could still answer her prayers. One Sunday, after service, Chizzy met a man named Obinna, a kind-hearted, successful businessman who had recently returned to Nigeria after many years living abroad. He was immediately struck by Chizzy's grace and her quiet strength. Unlike the men from her past, Obinna wasn't deterred by her age. He admired the woman she had become, humble, prayerful, and compassionate. The two began to spend more time together, and a deep, sincere bond grew between them. For the first time in years, Chizzy felt genuine love and companionship. Obinna didn't care about her past. He saw only the woman she was now. Within a year, Obinna asked for Chizzy's hand in marriage, and for the first time, Chizzy said yes without hesitation. The wedding was a modest but beautiful ceremony held in her hometown, Oba. Her family, once fearful she would never find happiness, were overjoyed to see her walk down the aisle at last. Her brothers flew in from around the world to celebrate her union with Obinna, and her parents, now elderly, watched with tears of joy in their eyes. Chizzy had finally found peace, but even after the wedding, she still longed for something she believed might never come, a child. She had accepted the idea that perhaps she was too old to bear children. But deep in her heart, she never stopped praying. Months passed, and then, miraculously, Chizzy discovered that she was pregnant. At first, she couldn't believe it. At nearly 50, she had been told by doctors that it was nearly impossible. But the miracle had happened, and Chizzy and Obinna were overjoyed. Her parents, now in their older age, couldn't stop praising God for this gift they thought they would never live to see. 9 months later, Chizzy gave birth to twin girls. The entire community was stunned. The woman who had once been cursed, who had pushed away all her suitors, and who had once been the epitome of pride, was now a mother of two beautiful daughters. Her heart was overflowing with gratitude and joy. Years passed, and Chizzy's life had transformed completely. She was no longer the arrogant and proud woman she once was. Instead, she had become known for her kindness, humility, and generosity. She and Obinna raised their daughters with love and care, teaching them to be kind to everyone, regardless of their status or wealth. Chizzy's parents lived long enough to hold their granddaughters, a blessing they never thought they would experience. Her brothers, proud uncles, continued to support her, marveling at the way her life had turned around. And Chizzy, who once thought she had lost everything, realized she had gained far more than she could have ever imagined. At family gatherings, surrounded by her loving husband, her daughters, and her extended family, Chizzy often thought back to her younger years, the mistakes she made, the men she insulted, the curse that was placed on her. They all seemed like distant memories. What remained was the lesson she had learned, that humility, faith, and love could overcome anything, even a curse. Chizzy had been given a second chance, and she made the most of it. Chizzy's story became one of redemption, grace, and the miracles of faith. When everyone believed it was too late for her, God proved otherwise. Married at 50 and blessed with twin daughters, Chizzy had finally found the life she was always meant to live, one built on love, humility, and the power of second chance. Thank you for watching. This is where our story ends. But before we conclude it, let's look into our moral lessons. Humility is key. No matter your background or status, humility opens doors to forgiveness and redemption. The power of second chances. It's never too late to turn your life around. Make amends and receive the blessings you once thought were lost. The value of patience and faith. Trusting in God's timing can lead to miraculous outcomes, even when the world says it's too late. Treat everyone with kindness. Our actions have lasting impacts, and the way we treat others today can shape our future in ways we may never expect. Forgiveness heals. Seeking and granting forgiveness can break curses, heal wounds, and lead to restore relationships and new beginnings. This concludes our story. Thank you once again for watching. And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And also touch the bell button so that you will be notified each time we put out new video. Subscribe for more stories with powerful life lessons. Please and please subscribe to help us grow our channel. God bless you all as you do so. Bye-bye. Love you.